It is now time for my video of the week, and this is going to be a response to the last few episodes of Raw and some speculation that's going on from Wrestling Observer regarding what the WWE's plans are for Hell in a Cell and my, basically how it conflicts with what I initially wanted for the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. And I'm not saying what I'm about to talk about means that the Observer's right. We don't know yet. Not much of the Hell in a Cell card has been made known, officially. But based on what I'm seeing on TV, it looks like this is where the WWE is headed for the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. And what the Observer wrote doesn't seem very far-fetched. So I'm just going to talk about what the Observer mentioned and how I don't like it. Apparently, again, according to the Observer, the WWE's plan for Hell in a Cell is to have 2 Hell in a Cell matches. The show is supposed to open up with Dean Ambrose versus John Cena in a regular match. The winner gets Seth Rollins in a Hell in a Cell match in the main event. And the loser gets Randy Orton in a Hell in a Cell match, presumably as the pre-main event. I don't know. So that'll take up 3 of the matches on their card. Now, I don't like that. I don't like that at all. It just kind of pushes all my bad buttons of what I wanted out of the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. And anybody who's seen my videos, they know that I don't like repeating gimmick matches on the same show. I think it kind of dilutes the importance of the gimmick. I think it takes away from whatever build-up you try to do for these matches. And it makes them feel less special when you do more of them, one on top of the other. It's one of the reasons I hate Lockdown. And I've done several videos talking about how much I hate Lockdown. I think it's one of the worst things TNA ever did. People can say what they want, and it was a creative concept or whatever, and it typically does their better pay-per-view buys. Yeah, it's also made the steel cage match completely worthless from a creative standpoint. I mean, if TNA did a steel cage match next week, would anybody give a shit? If WWE did a steel cage match next week, would anybody give a shit? It's just, it just makes it feel less special when you have 8 of them on one card. And with WWE's Hell in a Cell, I feel the same way, where there are some Hell in a Cell pay-per-views where they've had as many as 3 Hell in a Cell matches, and I think that is way too much. And if they're going to make this pay-per-view the designated Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, to me there should only be one. And I think that having more than one just makes it feel less special. I mean, that's just my opinion. So this whole setup that, again, not confirmed, but based on what I'm seeing on TV, seems very likely, because right now Cena and Ambrose are fighting over who gets to beat up Seth Rollins. So to me, that kind of lends itself to this situation seeming very likely. And if the WWE was going to go down this route, first of all, this feels like something that WCW would have booked. Where, let's look at the logistics of this. And when I say WCW, I mean bad WCW, like 99 to 2001, like just shit WCW. Russo days. Cena and Ambrose are supposedly going to have a match, with the winner getting Seth Rollins and the loser getting Randy Orton. Both matches are Hell in a Cell. So, looking at that, the winner of the match gets a Hell in a Cell match. The loser of the match gets a Hell in a Cell match. How does that make any goddamn sense at all whatsoever? Maybe if one of them was a champion, I guess, or there'd be some kind of added bonus to... I get that they both want to get their hands on Seth Rollins more than they do Orton, but it really kind of shits on Orton that he's kind of the consolation prize. And ultimately, the 2 matches aren't that radically different from each other. It's just a different opponent inside the Hell in a Cell, so... either way, both guys are going to have to wrestle twice, and either way, they're both going to have to wrestle inside the cell. So the prize itself and the consequences are really almost non-existent, and just really makes that whole setup just seems really silly to me. And God forbid, I mean, heaven above, some divine act of whatever spiritual forces exist in this universe has to interfere and stop them from keeping John Cena from facing Seth Rollins in the main event of this pay-per-view, because it can't happen. You cannot do that. Anybody who's watched Raw lately knows that Dean Ambrose is clearly the most over babyface in the company. That whole thing he did on Raw this week, which ended with like a really childish joke where he opens the briefcase and the Nickelodeon slime flies all over his face. I'm like, okay, that's something a 7-year-old would have written. But other than that, Ambrose did a fantastic job in that segment. And when he stole the T-shirts and was throwing them into the crowd, he even crapped on his own shirt and said that he'd sell a Sheamus shirt for like $1 or what was it, like a quarter or a dime, something like that. And you know, you don't see baby faces being that openly honest, shall we say, about WWE merchandise. I mean, he even shit on his own T-shirt, so which I didn't even know Dean Ambrose had a T-shirt. So that tells you how the marketing machine isn't quite behind him yet. Not at least not as much as they are Cena. But if Cena goes over Ambrose, and I can totally see them doing this if this whole situation is set up. If Cena goes over Ambrose and gets Rollins in the main event, it shits on Ambrose because it's like Cena leapfrogged him to take his revenge. Like, somehow Cena's revenge on Rollins is somehow more significant than Ambrose's revenge on Rollins. Which anybody who's followed the storyline, does anybody truthfully care that Seth Rollins screwed Cena out of winning his 90 billionth world title? I mean, to me, the partnership of the Shield, the breakup, Seth Rollins' heel turn, and the months of Rollins constantly getting away from Ambrose, that to me is more interesting and lends itself more to a more engaging story than pretty much anything they do with Cena these days. I mean, even the storyline of trying to tempt Cena into going into the dark side is becoming an overused storyline. I mean, that's how dull and boring John Cena is. And it's sad that they had to manufacture this whole thing where they did the rematch with Lesnar, which I argued shouldn't have even happened at all. And they did the ending with Seth Rollins just so they could insert Cena into this Ambrose Rollins storyline, which nobody wanted. And nobody... It's just frustrating that they will do anything and everything to associate John Cena with any little thing that gets over. Remember Zack Ryder? He leached off of him. Remember AJ Lee, the first diva with a personality to get over in eons? Yep, she's got to be paired with John Cena. Dolph Ziggler gets over, he's got to be paired with John Cena. The Wyatt family gets over, they have to be paired with John Cena. And more often than not, Cena leaves those things worse off than when he found it. So he's a leech. He's just a giant fucking leech. And just ruins everything he touches. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that I just can't stand the character. It's boring, it's dull. I don't see the appeal. I've never seen the appeal. It's only gotten worse with age. It's like reliving, 91 through 93 of Hogan's run. And we'll even count his WCW year, like 94, 95. It's like reliving that, but for much longer. Like, it's so awful. It's so not fun. It's not fun. It's just not fun. And it just drives me nuts that they felt like they had to incorporate Cena into this. Because to me, it was completely unnecessary. And it's almost like the WWE has this mindset. If they don't incorporate John Cena into every big thing that happens, the world is going to explode, the WWE will die, and they'll never be able to recover from it. It's just Cena has to be everywhere, and he gets all the marketing and everything. And I think back when I was a wrestling fan, yes, Hogan was the big guy when I first started watching, but he wasn't incorporated into every single feud that got hot and got over, and he didn't interact with every single character. And I mean, he pretty much left the tag division alone. There were no 2-on-1 handicap matches where Hogan was squashing the Hart Foundation and Demolition. It was just, it's... Hogan was off doing his thing, and there might be some overlapping here or there, but for the most part, the tag division was its own thing, and the IC title situation and whatever Jake Roberts was doing was its own thing. And, it's just, I just don't feel it's necessary for John Cena to always be incorporated into every single thing it gets over. And as I've said before, it only really works when Cena is positioned to be hated on purpose, like the Daniel Bryan SummerSlam match, or like Money in the Bank 2011, or like One Night Stand 2006. When Cena is positioned as the heel, whether they want to say he's the heel or not, when he's positioned as the heel, the storyline is so much better, and it's so much more interesting. But this just feels like he's interfering in something that I like, and I just can't stand it. And if he goes over Ambrose and he goes over Rollins, I might quit on the WWE for a while, because that would just infuriate me to no end. If they do a triple threat Hell in a Cell main event, I'm going to be pissed off, because there's just, like I said, there's no reason for Cena to be there. And if they want to do a Cena-Rollins feud or a Cena-Ambrose feud, okay, fine. Could you do it after Ambrose and Rollins wrap up? Or could you do it before you get to the big payoff with Ambrose and Rollins and kind of use a feud with Cena as a stepping stone for them to get to their big main event match? And even if they do what I want them to do, where it should be Ambrose and Rollins, that's absolutely what the match should be. If they do this crazy situation that the Observer talked about, if it's Cena and Ambrose goes over Cena, and then Ambrose faces Rollins in the main event, they're still kind of screwed, because Cena and Orton is going to be in a Hell in a Cell match, which, again, has already happened, and I've seen Cena and Orton so many goddamn motherfucking times. I mean, it really is cruel that the lesser of two evils here is the situation where Cena-Orton happens again. That is evil, that you created that. That is just cruel and wrong and just fucking evil. But, I mean, do you want to do that match again? I mean, did you see the Royal Rumble this year and the way the fans reacted to that match? The match has happened 8 billion fucking times. It's gotten to a point where me saying 8 billion is not as much of a hyperbole as it should be. It really has happened a shitload of times. Please stop it. Nobody wants to see it anymore. And especially making it, if they go with the double Hell in a Cell format, that'll be even worse, because it takes away from Ambrose and Rollins. Because either A, they're going to be the closer after having to follow another Hell in a Cell match, so what they do will seem less special. Or B, they won't get the main event spot, which if that happens, fuck them. They absolutely should close. Like I said, if they do this whole crazy, wacky, like, 3-match thing with Cena, Ambrose, Orton, and Rollins, it absolutely should be Ambrose goes over Cena, and then you do Rollins and Ambrose in the main event. That's how it should be. But even then, you're not maximizing the potential of what you could possibly accomplish with an Ambrose-Rollins Hell in a Cell match. The only thing I can think of is that, well, at least the people will shit on Orton and Cena, I would think. I mean, they shat on the Royal Rumble match, why wouldn't they? And people are clearly sick of seeing it, but you know, they'll shit on that match so hard that they'll just kind of get their energy back for Ambrose and Rollins or whatever and just treat it like that other match never happened. I don't know, but for something that should have been so simple, just Ambrose and Rollins, give them a big payoff at Hell in a Cell. That's what I wanted. That's what I was saying, you know, coming out of SummerSlam. That's what I was saying. What they should be setting up for and gearing up for, and they had to incorporate Cena. They just had to do it. And, I mean, like I said, the match card isn't set in stone yet, so what I would do, if I were writing next week's Raw, I would have Ambrose get the match somehow, some way. He's the one that should get the match. And then Cena's disappointment with it, not getting the Rollins match, takes him off in some other storyline direction that nobody else will care about, because nobody gives a shit about Cena's stories. I mean, really, even if you're a Cena fan, I gotta ask, like, what is the appeal at this point? I'm failing to see, like, I get if you're 8 and 9 years old and you just like whatever you're told to like, because I was the same way when I was a kid, you know. I liked Coco Beware when I was very young. I liked the Bushwhackers. I get it, you know, but I don't get it. Cena's just, he's got to be fucking everywhere, and he's always got to be the main focus of everything. It just boils my blood, and it drives me crazy. And it took something, and even if they do go ahead and they just do straight up Ambrose Rollins Hell in a Cell with no funny games, which, great if they do that, the last couple of editions of Raw have really suffered from having Cena so closely involved with with the Ambrose Rollins storyline. I mean, he's kind of... He just feels like he's in the way. Like, when they did that whole segment where Ambrose was sitting in the ring and took over the show, and Cena came out to jaw-jack with him, it's like, oh my god, I don't want to look at you right now. Just go away. Unless Ambrose just lays you out and kicks your ass right now, I just don't care. And... you know, it is what it is, unfortunately, and I think that what the Observer reported unfortunately seems very likely. I hope that it doesn't happen, and I hope they just come to their senses or do the right thing and just do Ambrose Rollins Hell in a Cell. It's the only Hell in a Cell match. Give them the closing spot. Let them have their climax, and hopefully create some big stars out of it. Because, you know, one of the reasons that they rely so much on Cena is because they haven't put that much promotion into anybody else. I mean, nobody else. From the merchandise. I hear all the time that Cena sells a lot of merchandise. It's like, well, you know, he also has 50 times more merch items than anybody else on the roster. Like I said, I didn't even know Dean Ambrose had a t-shirt. And it's not even that good, as Ambrose pointed out on Raw this week. But it's disappointing, and hopefully, you know, my complaining will wind up being completely baseless, and Hell in a Cell turns out okay, and they do the right thing and book it the way it should be booked. But for right now, I'm just kind of, I see the writing on the wall, and I'm just like, why? But them's the breaks. Anyway, that's all I have for now. I will see you all next week, and peace out, everybody.